waiting. Meet your eyes, folks.
Gata on opening the sutra. The Dharma incomparably profound and infinite, subtle, is rarely encountered, even in millions of ages. Now we see it, hear it, receive and maintain it. May we completely realize the Tathagata's true meaning.
Good afternoon, everybody. In my opening comments, I talked some about seasons and how being able to connect with them and meet them well is essential to practicing well. And as I said then, Sesshin is itself a kind of a season. And you all have noticed by now that within the season of Sesshin, there are seasons. There are ebbs and there are flows. There are epiphanies, there are befuddlements. There's the whole menu is on offer. And of course you could say, well, you know, isn't that always the case? And you certainly wouldn't be wrong. But there's something very different about encountering these seasons of mind and heart and body within the framework and the container of Sesshin. And it can be elusive as to why this would be. After all, we sit around, we don't talk much, go for little walks, have a meal, take a nap. Hell, there are even snacks. What's so different? In a way, nothing is at all different, but in another way, it's completely unique. This environment that we share together, in fact, that we co-create together, is both inherited by the blessings of the lineage, and yet not a fossil to be preserved in a museum, gazed at from a distance, and just sort of read the placard and think you've got it. This is a living, breathing book that we all read by being it. It is a living, breathing way of experiencing the mind of awakening, as experienced by the lineage of ancestors before us, as experienced by the lineage of ancestors before them, all the way back to our original founding ancestor, Shakyamuni Buddha. So this business is about connecting with and participating in that mind of awakening. And believe me, it's not what you think it is. Oh, it's going to be great. It's going to be all glitter and snow globes, and it's just going to be great. You know, maybe smoke machines, perhaps a disco ball. This is what the mind does. It fantasizes delights as well as terrors and harbors them and mistakes them for being what's real, and thus the trap. Ironically, it's possible to be bitterly disappointed that there is no mirror globe on the ceiling. Oh, I thought for sure, I know what awakening is. There's smoke, there's mirrors, there's glitter. No. Unless that happens to be what's around you when you become awakened, that's fine. I'm not going to say it can't be, you know. I've got an open mind, you know. I've had a wide variety of experience. But nonetheless, we have to be able to cast aside our plans and our expectations and what we think we know, whether you think you know it or not. And you just have to let that go in order to encounter what is actually happening. And it can be quite startling when we begin to actually contact raw experience, when we begin to, in earnest, contact our lives directly without narration or story making or armor or lipstick. What is it to just directly connect? It's not all bliss and fuzzy warms, is it? And sometimes students will come in and say, I must be doing this wrong. I feel awful. Like, not necessarily. That doesn't necessarily indicate anything much. What kind of awful? Oh, I don't know, it's just awful. No, that's not good enough. What flavor? Where? Exactly what is going on? You see, most of the time we veer towards experience and we immediately clamp down and we run down the same track we've done 10,000 times without our knowing, and we just assume everything. But the practice asks us to continually tune in. Don't assume anything. Tune in. Pay attention. Trust yourself. You don't need to do the dance. You really don't. In fact, it's getting in your way. We all learn ways of navigating our lives. Some serve us quite well in the world. But even if they serve you beautifully in some professional setting or some way of being in the world, please don't mistake that for who you are. Not really. Not really. For that, only one thing can do the work, and that's Zazen. It has nothing to do with being a witty orator or an intimidating meditator or a docile, subservient, obedient wisp of a person who does whatever they're told. No. No, 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 no. Yesterday, Doan Sensei explicated some material from the Fukazazengi by Master Dogen. And he's saying the same things. Let's continue on the journey with what he was pointing out and see how it's reflected there. From where Sensei left off. For Zazen, a quiet room is suitable. Up, 2, 3, 4. Up, 2, 3, 4. Up, 2, 3, 4. I can't. I mean, wow. Have you noticed the symphony happening all around us here in this quiet room? That's not separate from the quiet room. In fact, this business of sound is very important. A lot of people have trouble with sound. Can kind of kick your butt for a while. Eat and drink moderately. Oh, baneful advice. And yet it's true. Sometimes people come into session and, I mean, everybody has their way of dealing, and one of them is to just constantly be attacking the snack table. In fact, I can remember sometimes back in the older days, it was the farmhouse, so I'd go out there and suddenly on the kitchen counter is this array of Twizzlers and Snickers bars and all the things like that. No, it's not helpful. Do you see? I mean, honestly, it's no different than just, so you have all the scotch there. It's not helpful. I'm not saying never have a Twizzler. If that's your thing, fine. I'm not saying never have a scotch. Be careful, but okay, moderate. But listen, when you're trying to do this work, just cut it out. Just stop it. Put down the toys. Put down the distractions. Drop the hideouts. And I got to tell you, it's tough because you are hardwired to make them, to treasure them, to guard them as if your life depended on it. Because probably 50, 100,000, 200,000 years ago, it did. In whatever that actually looked like in our indigenous environment at the time. But today, it's just not helping you. It's just not. The food that we serve is very carefully considered. It's not random. And it matters. Even Master Dogen is saying, mind what you eat. Cast aside all involvements and cease all affairs. I don't know how many times I've said on this retreat to different students in the Doksan room, when you sit Zazen, you must be no one in particular. You're not a Shoken student, you're not a priest, you're not a first-time visitor, you're not the old hand. You're not gendered, you're not careered, you're not whatever your age is, or your race, or any of this stuff. Completely drop all of that. You're none of your roles in the world. Mom, dad, kid, employee, employer, whatever, homemaker. Not when you sit. For the sake of parents, children, relationships, career, and the world, please let it all go when you sit. If you want to really be able to help and show up in that way, know how to let it go. If you know how to let it go, then you know how to take it up. If you don't know how to let it go, you actually can't take it up. You're stuck to it. And ultimately, none of those roles will save you from your own suffering. I'm not saying they're bad things, but they're not the thing. What is the thing? Who are you? Who is it that's 20 years old or 40-year-old or 90 years old? Who is it that's healthy or ill? Who is it that's hearing? This is the only thing that will help, really help. You've got to understand, no, you've got to realize this. And when I say that, sometimes people get concerned. I see the brows furrow and the eyes narrow, that there's some other thing they should be doing. They want to get to the real thing. You are doing the real thing. Yes, it's true, there are stages of practice, and they are real. We've had a number of people this retreat who've moved from one stage of training to another, and I bow to you all. It's a beautiful thing. I would actually like it if everyone would join me with that. It's no small thing to move from one stage of training to the next. But I tell you, the hardest stage of training to make it to is to actually start. It's way harder to actually settle the hell down and start in earnest than it is to grow and deepen along the path. That's easy. Once you find the path and you start walking on it, you're going to do it. Finding the damn path and committing to it, that's the hard part. And if you think that there's some other stage you need to be at or some other koan you need to have or be rid of, some other practice you should be doing that would be the real thing, you're missing it. I tell you this, the very thing that the first day a visitor walks in and gets beginning instruction from Reverend Shokai is the ultimate teaching. The whole thing is practice realization of Buddha Dharma. All of it. Which means, whatever your practice is, stop shopping for other practices. Settle the hell down and do your work. Trust the process. You know? Oh, I'm just doing breath. I want to do these koans. They seem so great. Oh God, I hate this koan. I just want to do another one. No, it's worse than that. This koan hates me. This is horrible. There's no escape. It follows me everywhere. Ah! Be gone. Tormenting koan, you know. If only I could just focus on my damn breath again. Don't worry. Everywhere is just right. And I really mean that. And, you know, frankly, that's the role of the teacher. That's the job description of the teacher, is to be able to help kind of nudge the practice along in useful and helpful ways, you know? So you can outsource all the concern about what you should be doing in your zazen to Doan. You know, her job. Big shoulders, don't worry about it. She's got it. Your job is to do your job. Does that make sense, everybody? Waste no time pondering what the next koan is going to be or what this other exotic sounding practice might have to offer. You're done with that. Just cut it out. Do what's here, and it's boring. It's like this. I came here to conquer the mysteries of the cosmos, and I'm confronted with serving oatmeal. Yeah, baby. Yes to both. For real. Cast aside all involvements and all affairs. This is a skill. And it doesn't mean that you don't care, or that you're unempathetic, or that you abandon things that matter to you. No, it's exactly the opposite. It really is. Master Dogen continues, he says, do not think good or bad. Do not administer pros and cons. Now look, when you're in the world and you're trying to do a bit of career planning and you're trying to tackle a project at work, pros and cons are a good thing, right? There is good and there is bad. If you're in charge of that massive piece of machinery at the plant, you make sure your guys are safe, right? It matters. There is good and there is bad. Well, this would be more efficient, but it's more risky. No, you don't take the risk. That's true. Dogen is talking about zazen. When you're sitting, you have to put that mind down and stop judging your own practice. Frankly, you're not qualified. So don't worry about it. Again, that's the teacher's burden and joy. And thank goodness I had the good sense to find a real teacher, not just a well-marketed and branded teacher of modern enlightenment or whatever the hell, actual teacher. And I had the good sense to just practice with them. Because, you know, I have the kind of mind, and some of you also do, that can just generate things. Well, what if I did this? Well, if I did that? You know, if I took this and added it to that, wow, this would be amazing. And I can just spend a year creating permutations I don't do shit with and just keep creating them. Meanwhile, the beard is growing longer and grayer, and the wisdom is just not increasing, nor my compassion, and certainly not my equanimity. Become a hoarder of possibilities, trapped by what you can perceive, but will never do. Do you know what I'm talking about? You've got to settle down, man. You've got to settle in and dig in. There's no place else on this planet that you need to be in order to discover yourself. Cease all movements of the conscious mind, the gauging of all thoughts and views. Even as you're listening to this Teisho, it's relentless, the inner commentary's ability to agree and disagree and approve and not approve and, oh gosh, I don't measure up to that, or I crushed this one, or whatever. Just notice that tendency, bow to it, and pay it no mind. It's okay that your brain does that. Just don't play with it. Feel where your body is in contact with the earth right now. Feel where your gravity is connecting to the earth. Feel your breath hitting the one point. And let the words wash through you. You don't need to collect them, stick pins in them, put them on a tray in your den. Just let the Dharma wash over you and trust it. Have no designs on becoming a Buddha. Have no designs on becoming awakened. Kind of an ironic bit of advice sounding from a Zen master. But I tell you this, it's the very designs and planning and ideas that keep you separated from it. Again, the Master extols us to drop the planning and the plotting and the drama and the yes and the no and the good enough and not good enough. Just no amount of that will ever result in awakening. None. How much time have my pugs spent trying to become pugs? How much suffering has the tree caused itself wishing it could be a tree? Or the sky concerning itself with being a sky and how to really be a sky one day, finally? If you could just get rid of these pesky clouds. Be free of that irritating sun. None. When the moon is doing her work, the sky bows. When the sun is doing its work, the sky embraces. No problem. If it's a massive typhoon and storm, the sky is still there, same as in a gentle fall breeze, with the smell of autumn drifting. The sky is untouched. And so, dear one, is your true nature, your true self. There's no way to leave a streak in the sky with your hand. There's no way that the inherent purity of your true self can be tarnished by anything, not even the dumbest ass thing you've ever done so far. Even that, as regrettable as it may well be, doesn't touch your essential perfection. How can it be so? And then he goes on to give some very practical advice on the method of sitting. At the site of your regular sitting, spread out a thick matting and place a cushion above it. Sit either in full lotus or half lotus. And here I would say, or Burmese or cobbler or inverted lotus or seiza or grab the damn chair. It's okay. He goes on to talk about placing the foot on the thigh, and he describes the mudra in detail, the same one that we all use here, no different. Mind you, the mudra that we use is not something that I came up with, for God's sake. It's not something that my Roshi came up with, or their Roshi came up with, or anything. It's handed, it's given, it's transmitted. We participate in it. We carry it forward. We embody it. We let it go. Because it changes when it's kinhin. Now it's a different mudra. It changes when it's time to make a gasho. Meet the season. Meet the moment. Have you noticed how during retreat we seem to have some kind of non-verbal hyperlink going? You're not sure what's happening, and the gashos start to happen around you, and automatically your hands join, and you're carried along into the forms. Did you feel the beauty when the servers were coming up and bringing the food and serving? Is it not exquisite? This meeting human to human, Buddha to Buddha. And if you're sitting there wondering when you're going to get to the real thing, well, I have great patience. I'll wait. But you must have great fortitude. You must persevere. Thus, sit upright in correct posture, neither inclining to the left nor the right, neither leaning forward and back. Make sure your ears are in a plane with your shoulders and your nose is in line with the navel. Place your tongue against the front of the roof of your mouth with teeth and lips both shut. There are specific reasons for things, by the way. It's not just random. Your eyes should always remain open. You should breathe gently through the nose. Once you've adjusted your posture, take a deep breath, inhale and exhale, rock your body to the right and left, and settle into a steady, immobile sitting position. Now, this is something I don't necessarily see many Sangha members visibly doing. And it's okay, it's not like you have to do that. But what he's pointing to is this business right here, a little bit, and then like a pendulum, you just let it come right on home. And you feel your weight in that one point. You imagine you have a cannonball on a chain, and it's kind of tethered to you, and it's down there about 30 feet, swinging, and it's heavy. It's one of those big Russian kettlebells. And you kind of sway back and forth a little bit, and it's way down there, opposite you. Way down there, and it's really heavy. And you just need to move a little bit here, and it's a massive movement way down there below the earth, and eventually these things settle in, and boom. Now you're upright. Your spine reaches up. Your body relaxes. The bones are held in suspension by, the muscles are held in suspension by the bones. And the bones have traction. The lower occipitals here are reaching up to the heavens. The spine is lightly pulled back like the string of a bow. The weight below you is pulling down, and there you are, between heaven and earth. And in the center of it is not your brain. It's not your words in your mouth. It's not even your heart. It's that one point. The one point is at the center of the whole thing. You need to feel that, touch that, connect with that. That's just like tuning the guitar before you start to play. It's a good idea. Okay. Then this helpful bit of cheery advice: think, not thinking. Because he anticipates your response, he generously replies and says, how do you think non-thinking? Non-thinking. Oh, thank you, Master. Now it's all so clear. Let me translate a little bit, right? Think. I don't like it. Focus your awareness. Focus your awareness. Wield your awareness. Non-thinking. In my experience, it doesn't really mean shut your damn brain off. I mean, that'll do it. I don't advise it. Very bad karma. Very bad. However, non-thinking, do not put your awareness in playing with your damn thoughts. Don't play with the thoughts. Don't live in the thoughts. Don't identify with the thinking mind at this time. In truth, you can't stop your brain from functioning, and you really shouldn't want to. But you can learn to wield your awareness, and that you need to do. And in retreat, literally every moment is set up for you to have an opportunity and feedback. You know, getting ready for the big oryoki noon meal, the biggie. The teachers are going to eat with us, oh God. I love this beautiful umpang gong we have. It's playing and filling the sound. It was very well played today, by the way. Well done. Well played, Kokuji. Well played. But do you notice how it keeps the energy going, right? And there's a tendency for the mind. So let us just say you're a person for whom your only job there is to grab your oryoki bowls and sit down. And that's your practice. That's your practice in that moment. Tokuchi's letting it happen on the gong. You're grabbing the bowl. Somebody else is getting the chow. Somebody else getting the table set up, on and on, right? And you know your gig is to get the bowls and sit down. But you don't do that, do you? What you do instead is you watch what everyone else is doing. And you wonder what's happening. Are they doing that right? Is this happening right? What's going on over there? Hey, look at that, squirrel. I mean, it looks like you're sitting there with your oryoki bowls, but you're not fooling me. Unless you are just sitting there with your oryoki bowls, in which case it radiates and communicates and nourishes. It nourishes, it helps, it contributes. People have a hard time with this. Some people have a very hard time letting someone else serve you. I can't just sit here while someone else is working. I have to at least think about what they're doing, or I'm a bad boy. Really, the Eno's practice is to voice and lead us in the chant. The server's practice is to bring the food and serve it egolessly. And at that time, let us say, your job is to sit there with your oryoki bowls. Different? Same. Trust. If someone needs you, believe me, the shoulder tap will come. It will. And in this way, we learn to give and we learn to receive. We embody in the belly of deep samadhi practice what it is to connect and to serve and to sit in our own seat. And all of this, that's just one frame in the film of this week. But each frame of the retreat, if it's really right, would be an expression of the entire mandala sizzling with practice. And it extends, dear ones, even to those who are not in this physical space at this time. The Sangha is not limited to those who are physically here at this moment. You hang around for a while, you'll start to hear stories and have them yourself to tell about how once you've done some Sesshin and you know what's going on and you taste it for yourself, how when Sesshin begins to happen, you can feel it out in your daily life. If you ever felt that, just make a gassho real quick. This happens. This can happen. But if you really want to help the Ukrainian refugees and the flood victims and those immigrants being used as theater, if you want to help the planet itself in her sufferings, do this. Really do this. Because inevitably, this form and this time and this container will come to its conclusion. Every cloud formed ceases to be. once the karmic causes and conditions have played out. And this assembly right here will never, ever happen again. In the entire history of the cosmos, this exact assembly has never occurred before, and it will never happen again, but it's connected to all the other ones in whatever form or shape. And yet this one is unique and beautiful, just exactly like this. So how do we help all these beings throughout space and time? Get your oryoki bowl and sit down and do it beautifully, nobly, with all the dignity of Buddha, of royalty. And then sit there and wait. Or get up and serve. Do you see? Think, not thinking. How do you think, not thinking? Non-thinking. Don't think about it. I can't tell you how many times we're working on a little something, you know? And the student comes in and just describes all about it, up and down, back and forward. And even if the description is right on the money, it won't ever help. Because it can't. You can't take a map and think that you've been to the city. I was saying to someone, you know, you could look at the blueprint of this temple and memorize it. This room allocated to this function, these dimensions by them. This room allocated to this function, these dimensions by that. Here lies the kitchen, here lies the AV room, here's the office. You know these things. You don't know shit. You know something. But don't mistake that kind of knowing of what about the temple for actually being here, right? The smell of it, the feel of it, the feel of your foot hitting the wood in the zendo. It's directly connected to the earth below it. The feeling of that space between you and the pendant. You can't get that from reading this little diagram of the dimensions of the room. The dimensions aren't wrong. It's not that they're wrong. That way of relating to it won't help you heal that heart. It won't give you the power to show up in your life as the Buddha of your life. But the intellect doesn't know that. Because all the intellect has ever known is maps, dimensions, facts, right angles. They're okay, they're not wrong. Believe me, if we didn't have a slamming blueprint, we wouldn't be able to be sitting here right now. I'm not dissing it. Just understand it for what it is. You should bow to your intellect and to your ego and to your strategies for coping. You've had some shit to cope with. I hear you. But ultimately, it's time to put the maps down and taste the tea. And know how to be satisfied. Trust exactly where you are. I tell you this, if you learn to do it here, and you feel it in your bones here, it will be with you when you leave. However, if you content yourself with the maps, nowhere will feel right. And it's not that the maps are wrong, but you can't find your way home that way. So please, think, not thinking. This in itself is the essential of Zazen. The Zazen I speak of is not learning meditation. It is simply the Dharma gate of repose and bliss. Have you been feeling repose and bliss this retreat? Well, I can't feel repose and bliss. I've got an achy knee. Oh, is that all it takes to keep you from repose and bliss? I ask you, is the achy knee, which I now have regrettable experience with, is that really separate from repose and bliss? It needn't be so if you really understand true repose and true bliss. This too is it. This is not separate from it. Nothing is. How could it be? Can you see it? That's the question. It's not a matter of getting all the cats to line up just right and then finally you'll be happy. The cats don't line up right, have you noticed? And if they do, it's by accident and it's only for a second. And they're shedding anyway. And scratching the couch. And bringing in furry dead things. It is simply the Dharma gate of repose and bliss, the practice realization of totally culminated enlightenment. And this is hard to get. The Dharma gate of repose and bliss exactly as you are, with all the conditions you have to deal with and all the history you have and all the terrors that await. The Dharma gate of repose and bliss, the practice realization. That's one word. Dogen is famous for his cubism of language. That's how I think about it. He takes a thing and he shows it to you from all angles at once in language. Practice realization. It's one thing. Practice realization. Realization practice. It's not the practice of realization or realizing what practice is. It's practice realization. That's what Zazen is. It's manifesting practice realization of Buddha Dharma. That's the repose and bliss. Even when you're worried about what's going on with your kid or what's going to become of dad or what am I going to do in the world or what did I do in the world? Still. It is the manifestation of ultimate reality. And that basically, if you want to get right down to it, what are we doing? We're manifesting ultimate reality. You know, when that Densho bell rings and everybody stands up and the lights come on and we're starting to gather the energies to invoke the Heart Sutra together, you want to talk about manifesting ultimate reality, man. Have you felt how powerful that is? I mean, there's language involved, but it's so far past anything words can really contain. You know, then every now and then I hear somebody say, oh, I'm interested in Zen and all, but oh, that chanting stuff. I understand. I do. I get it. But you know what? I will never say, all right, let's just stop all chanting because it keeps some people from practicing. Because you know what? If you don't penetrate into what chanting the sutras is, you're not going to get it. And I know that. It'd be the same thing as saying, you know what? This Zazen stuff, it's kind of tough. Why don't we just play foosball? We could bring in like Japanese decorated foos tables and put them all around. We'd have more people. We'd sell more memberships. We could charge. And funny enough, that's what I see when I see a lot of what's on the, quote, spiritual marketplace. To my eye and from my experience, it looks like a culturally decorated in an appropriated and inappropriate way foosball table. What are you guys doing? So the customer is not always right. And the student needs to trust the tradition. The practitioner needs to trust the Dharma, not blind faith. I'm not talking about just because I say it, you have to think it. No, hell no. But I'm saying trust yourself and trust the process enough to engage the process, and then you'll see it for yourself. You don't need me to sit here and give you a Zen pep talk. You know it from for your own experience. And it doesn't mean you have to have like your head explode into epiphanies of lights and stuff. In fact, that would be rather scary. Shokai's head. Finally, the disco ball. Yeah. It's ordinary. It's simple. It's humble. It's modest. And it covers the entire goddamn cosmos. It's like that. My teacher, Myoen Roshi, he speaks of his awakening when a cabbage leaf rose from the bottom of his soup at an oryoki meal. What? Dude, what are you talking about? Really, he was in Sesshin, like you are now, feeling sorry for himself, as you may well be. And the soup came, and it wasn't what he wanted. And even so, there wasn't enough of it. Wah, wah, wah. And then suddenly, as he sat there immersed in his drama of his own creation, as the chanting softened his heart, he looked down, and at that moment, literally, a chunk of a cabbage leaf rose up from the bottom to the top. What else needs to be said? But you see, when you have enough samadhi, when you've given yourself the gift of having enough zazen under your belt, under your rakusu, you give your mind a chance to settle the hell down. You give your body a chance to actually settle down for real. You quit taking the escape hatches and just buckle in. You start to see the ordinary as the miraculous. Not because you're thinking it and wishing it would be so, but actually, there it is. It is the manifestation of ultimate reality. Traps and snares can never reach it. Once its heart is grasped, you are like the dragon when they gain the water, like a tiger when they enter the mountain. For you must know that there in Zazen, the right Dharma is manifesting itself, and that from the beginning, dullness and distraction are struck aside. Now, interestingly, he continues guidance, and this is an often overlooked part of this teaching. Everybody leans into the think not thinking stuff and the instructions and sitting. This is very important. He says, when you arise from sitting, move slowly and quietly, calmly and deliberately. Do not rise suddenly or abruptly. That's not just practical advice so you don't fall over because your damn leg's asleep, although it is that. But he's also telling you the practice continues. When the bell rings, your practice isn't over. Now your practice is to stand, if you can stand, and to take care of your body if you can't. But that's it too. And when the clappers strike, you turn. the correct direction. When they strike again, you bow and you put your hands in shashu and you begin practice realization, manifesting total reality, moment after moment, nen. No gaps. There's not an instant in between anything. There's no gap. In addition, the bringing about of enlightenment by the opportunity provided by a finger, a banner. We have a banner around the exit sign, that's our banner. A needle, perhaps in the sewing master's accoutrement, or a mallet. This one right there. And the effect of realization with the aid of a hosu, which is the whisk thing that a sensei will have when they officiate. A fist, got that. Staff, there's a hell of a staff right there. A shout, that happened. That's interesting. A few people have asked me why I made that kiai in whatever morning it was. It was this morning? Nice. I can still see all the imprints on the roof. You guys went, oh! It wasn't planned, I'll tell you, but it needed to happen. I'll tell you that. I'll say no more. The addition, the bringing about of enlightenment by the opportunity provided by a finger, that's Gyutai's finger, by the way. The banner, it's hoist up the flagpole when the Dharma's talk is going. A needle or a mallet, these are all, in the koan tradition, these are occasions of enlightenment that occurred within the family tradition and style. You know, someone heard they swept and a stone hit the bamboo, and the sound of the stone on the bamboo, the sound of it became their awakening entree. You know, you could add the floating cabbage leaf. Fit right into this. In addition, the bringing about of enlightenment by the floating cabbage leaf, that would be one to ponder in the future. What the hell was the floating cabbage leaf that these guys had? Wow, how cool. I want a floating cabbage leaf. My cabbage doesn't float. I'm not the real thing. It's not about the leaf, man. But the bringing about of enlightenment by the staff, the whisk, the shout, cannot be fully understood by discriminative thinking. You can't think your way through it. Thinking always has to do with knowing stuff, does it not? Oh, I'll do this. I'm not going to do that. I'd like this for lunch. I sure as hell don't want that for lunch. Knowing has its limits, and they are severe. It has its uses, but they are few. In the spiritual path, not knowing is most intimate. You must deeply become vulnerable to not knowing. There's no avoiding it. It has to happen. Don't worry, it's coming. Indeed, it cannot be fully known by practicing or realization or realizing of supernatural powers either. Sometimes people can get distracted by those. A fascination with what seems to be supernormal. Don't play with it. It won't help you anyway. The bodhisattva can use such things. A fully awakened person can use such things, but only to benefit others in their practice. That's how it works. Otherwise, the cost is far greater than whatever small boon it pretends to offer. Just don't play with it. Time is running out for you, for all of us. There are many, many side roads, appealing ones. Some people are very drawn by the shiny, light-filled, lovely-looking ones. Some people are really drawn in by the dark, spooky, scary ones. But either way, or both, that's not the answer. It isn't down either of those paths. It's in that leaf in the orioke meal. It's in the sound of those heaters turning off. It's in the shimmering light of the leaves in fall as they let go from the trees. Each one exactly at the right time, landing in precisely the right place. That's all the magic you need. It must be deportment beyond seeing and hearing. Is it not a principle that is prior to knowledge and perceptions? And he goes on. But it all comes down to this. It all comes down to you. Everything that Master Dogen ever wrote, anything that any of the ancestors ever did, said, taught, manifested, any of the training that my teacher endured, or that Dolan or I have, or that your Sangha fellows here have, is all for your benefit. The trees that have gone into the floor, all of it, the staff, the mallet, the needle, the finger, the sounds, they're all here for you. All you have to do is open your hand, let go, and be one with what is so. Right here, right now. May it be so.
The Buddha way is unsurpassable. I vow to embody it. Beings are numberless. I vow to free them. Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to end them. Dharma gates are boundless. I vow to enter them. The Buddha way is unsurpassable. I vow to embody it. Beings are numberless. I vow to free them. Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to end them. Dharma gates are boundless. I vow to enter them. The Buddha way is
Because we have less than 10 minutes, we'll have to not do an extended Kinhin through the woods, but so on, if you want to walk outside, meet Soan in the parking lot and with Kinhin around the building, and those who want to do Kinhin in this room will follow Reverend Kaishin for 10 minutes of Kinhin, and then the Han will sound to signal us back to the Zen Building.